Have you ever wanted to try fishing but just didn't know where to start? Well, today I'm going to take you from zero to fishing hero in just one day. Really?
Yeah.
Zero to fishing hero, that's the best we could come up with.
ChatGPT.
So cringy.
It is what it is.
All right, we'll go with it. So firstly, we'll be hitting up the local tackle shop, followed by going fishing, where hopefully we'll catch some fish. All whilst using budget-friendly kit to prove you don't have to spend a lot to get into fishing, and it's all up for grabs. Say hello. Now, if you're new to the channel, my name's Joe and I make fishing videos every single week. So if you haven't subscribed to me, click that little button down there. It goes a long way to help the channel grow and help me to make more videos like this. Now, to the tackle shop. Now, if you've never been fishing before, odds are you don't have any fishing kit to your name. So the best place to start is your local tackle shop. Behind me is Premier Angling in Cambridge. It's my local where I come to most weeks really for top-ups for my angling. But if you've not got anything to your name, they've still got you covered in there, whether it's carp, course, sea fishing, you name it, everything is in here. So it's the perfect place to go to grab a few bits. And don't forget, the people behind the till don't just know how to operate the till, they're also there to give you advice on where to fish, how to fish, what exactly is involved. So don't be afraid to ask them questions, even if you think it's stupid yourself. That's what they're there to help you with. Well, we're back outside after my shop and everything I've got here is going to get me fishing today. Before I run through the price of all these things, so you can do exactly the same as what I've just done, it's worth noting that all of this that you see today, minus the Mars bar I just bought, is going to one of you lucky winners. So stick around in the video to find out how to get involved. So one of you will win all of this stuff, again, minus the maggots, so you can get fishing or help someone else start fishing yourself. So what have I got in this bag and what are the costs of each and every item? Well, first up, of course, is the rod and reel. Now, this is a 9-foot float and reel combo from Shakespeare, and I think it's also combined with the Angling Trust to get people fishing, so it's exactly what you're gonna need. And this came in at $24.99, already loaded with line, and it's gonna be perfect for what I need to do a little bit of light fishing today. Next up, of course, is the net to land hopefully all the fish we're gonna catch today. This is a leader 60cm flip out net, and what that means is this is it collapsed down in its smallest form, but the two net arms will spring out like so, lock into place, and you've also got an adjustable handle to hopefully loosen, slide down, so it's going to be perfect for netting fish up to quite a decent size. Well, I'm not sure we're going to catch anything big enough to fill this net today, but it's perfect to get me going. And then we come on to some of the smaller items just to get me fishing, which include a float. Now this, I'll show you how that works in a second. Some shot to make that sit perfectly. Some plummets, which just helps me set the depth for where I'm fishing. A maggot box, which as you can imagine, inside here is a pint of mixed maggots. Now, of course, this isn't going to be getting sent in the post. I'm going to be using these today, but at least you've then got a tub to stick your own maggots in there as well. Now, all of that combined, bear in mind that the rod and reel was $24.99, the net was $19.99. All the rest of these bits and pieces, which are going to get me fishing today, came to a total of £70.31 minus the chocolate bar. So just over £69 to get myself fishing for the day. But remember, all of this will be used again minus the maggots and the Mars bar, which I keep talking about. So it's a setup cost and the rest is pretty cheap. And of course, the one last thing you're going to need before you go fishing is a rod license, but you can get them for a day, a week, a year, things like that. And the cost, if you wanted to go fishing for one day, see if you like fishing, is £7, 10p for up to 2 rods, and you're sorted. Get that and go fishing. Now, to go fishing, of course, there's loads of different places you can go. You can fish on pay lakes, rivers, the sea if you go for that sort of thing, but I want to keep this as cheap as possible, and just so happens that there's a free stretch of river just over the road behind me. So we're going to go there and see what we can catch. Oh, one of the items fell on the floor. Hooks. Definitely going to need hooks. Now, where you fish is completely up to you, but if you don't know where to start, ask the people in the tackle shop. They've got the local knowledge and often they can point you in the right direction. Today, I'm fishing a free stretch of river in the same town that the tackle shop is located, so it doesn't cost me anything and I could catch absolutely anything. So let's get down to the spot I'm going to fish for the day, rig this all up, show you how I'm fishing, and then of course, try and catch something. And when it comes to setting up, it's pretty simple, but there's a few fundamentals that if you've never fished before, you may not quite understand. This on a reel is called a bail arm. When you flick that open, it allows line to come off freely. So what you want to do straight away is pull that open, so you can then thread the line from the reel up through every single eye. Once it's through all the eyes, you can close that bail arm once again, just to stop the line from keep coming off. Then it's time to actually set everything up. So first and foremost, I threaded on my float, which is just positioned here. Just slid that on the line and left it for a second. And then I tied a figure of 8 loop knot. Now, if you don't know how to tie one of these up, if you Google it, you'll find step by steps. But the basics is double the line back on itself to form an initial loop. Then you do like a loop that you twizzle to form a secondary loop. Twizzle that secondary loop, then tuck the initial loop back through. See, I told you, you're probably going to be better off finding a step-by-step tutorial on that one. But once you've tied that, that's one of the easiest and strongest loop knots you can tie. And the reason we tie that is because the hook to nylon we're then using, which is the bit with the hook on, has a little loop already on it. So you just pass your big loop that you've just made through the little loop on the hook to nylon, pass that whole little hook link back through the loop, pull it tight, and there you are, a loop to loop, connecting things really quickly and easily. Now this little pre-tied hook section is lighter line than what I'm mainly using, so if I was to come across a snag, like a branch on the bottom or something, that's what's going to break off before anything else. It's kind of a safety aspect, but also, without getting too in depth of it, the lighter diameter line, the thinner the line, for smaller fish, less cagey, things like that. But now we need to secure the float in place. Now that's where the shot come in, and that's the little non-toxic weights that have a split in them, so that you put them onto the line, and then you crush them down with your fingers. Teeth, if you've done it before, you'll know that sometimes you can get that wrong and it hurts your teeth. So maybe don't use teeth to start with, maybe use some little pliers or something, just to pinch it into position. Now this isn't going to be enough weight yet to hold this float exactly where I need it, but it's just enough to hold the float in position, because then, lastly, I put one of these plummets on. Now this is so I can set the depth of where I'm fishing. You pass the hook through the little loop on the top and tuck it into the foam on the very bottom. Now this is way too heavy for this float, so what it does, when you cast it out, that hits the bottom, drags everything down with it. So once that float disappears with this on, you know you're fishing too shallow. I keep adjusting the float, moving it up the line and pinching the shot back into place to hold it into position until eventually I see the float just below the surface, and that means I'm fishing at the perfect depth for this setup. Of course you can fish under depth, so you fish a bit too shallow, or you fish over depth, but that's the basics. You want to fish pretty much bang on the depth you're fishing at. I'm going to fish slightly under depth because I'm fishing on a slow moving river. The bottom's probably going to be up and down, undulating. I don't want to be right on the bottom where I'm going to be snagging up on branches and twigs and things like that. So that's why I'm going to now adjust the float to the perfect depth and then bring it ever so slightly back up. I hope you followed all that. It's simple to me, but I'm aware if you've never done it before, that could feel like a lot of gibberish. So cast this out, start adjusting the float, and we'll get the depth sorted. And all the while, I'm trickling maggots into the swim as well, just to get the fish that are hopefully here feeding around with no pressure on them whatsoever. So when I put my hook bait in, hopefully it will catch something. And the very, very last thing to mention that I didn't pick up at the first trip to the tackle shop is this little guy. This is known as a disgorger, and this is for when sometimes little fish take the hook bait a bit too far back for your fingers to fit in and take it out. This goes into the mouth, pops the hook out, and brings it out for you. So don't forget a disgorger. Let's get the rod out and set the depth. So I'm going to fish nice and close in, so I don't have to do much casting today. It's slow moving. Just plop it just in front of me there. And already I can see I'm under depth, so bring that back in. And slide the float with the shot holding position up the line. Probably a good foot or so. I know I was quite under depth there. Like so. Give it another test. Under depth again, but not by much, so I think a few more inches and we'll be about there. Remember, I don't want to go too close to the bottom because it is quite snaggy. As I've already discovered on the very first cast, I lost my plumb weight on my plummet. Slide them back up. I think that is going to be about where I want it, just off the bottom, drifting through. Lower that down. Perfect. So I can see my float is about 3 inches below the surface there, which means that when it's drifting along, my maggot is going to be just off the bottom. So that's now where I want the float to be. So take the plumb weight off, and now I've got to set the amount of shot on the float so that it sits perfectly in the water. So take that little weight off. We're going to need a few more weights to make sure that float sits nicely, because what we want at the moment, when this hasn't got enough weight on it, it's sitting probably that much proud of the water. What we want to do is keep on adding shot until eventually we get it so that the float is sitting basically like that, So when you get a bite, that float disappears under the water, and that's when you strike. You can sometimes get lift bites when a fish comes up with everything, but typically that's the bite you're looking for, a float going under. So just added a couple more shot, time to test how that float sits. Almost there, I reckon a couple more shot and we'll have that perfect with the orange just in line with the surface of the water. And add another couple shot between the float and the hook, which will help bring the line down through the water a little bit quicker. One there, another one. So we've got 2 shot there. Second shot should sink down like that, and that is absolutely perfect. That's exactly what we wanted. So now we add the maggots and we're ready to start fishing. Well, we're nearly ready to go, but the last thing to mention is something called setting the clutch. Now, this is referring to the reel again. Here, as you can see, the reel spins and clicks. That's called the clutch. This is adjusted by this knob on the rear. Anti-clockwise loosens it, so that's really, really loose. Clockwise tightens it. So about there. So what I want to do is set that clutch to somewhere that is in relation to the size of fish I'm going to be trying to catch. That should be about correct. If you find when you're hitting fish and playing them, it's spinning too much, you tighten it, and vice versa. If there's too much tension, you're getting worried, loosen it ever so slightly. Just allow the fish to pull some line off when the tension's getting a bit too much. I'm not expecting to catch anything big today, but it's nice to know how a reel works. And of course, the handle spins and brings the line back onto the reel. That is the basics. The last thing to now do is put my hook bait on, which, as you've seen, I've been loose feeding maggots. And this, nice and simple. You grab one of the maggots you want to use. I'm going to go for a red one to start with. And you'll see there's a sort of a pointier end to a maggot, and then one end which has these 2 little black dots. They're not eyes, but that's where you want to be hooking them. Basically, right on those 2 black dots. Just nick it. Don't want to go too far through because you don't want to make it burst and maggot juice go everywhere. But there we are. Single maggot is now on the hook. Right, time to start fishing. The float is set. The depth is set. The maggot now on the hook. So I've got to flick the float out into where I'm fishing. Pinch your maggots to go on the top. And we let that float trot through. It's now settled perfectly. The orange is just settling on the surface. And as soon as I see that float disappear, we strike. And hopefully, we'll be hooked into our first fish of the day. So it's just drifting under these branches where typically you tend to find fish like cover. Especially in a built-up area like this, lots of bird life, they might find a bit more refuge under branches. So it might take a few passes through and keep trickling in the maggots before we get any bites, but we've got to keep doing it. Keep an eye on that float all the way, so it's under the bush to my right now, just getting caught on a branch. Let it trot through a bit further. And once it gets too far, bring it back and do the whole thing again, of which it's about to. So no luck on the first cast, that's fine. Bring it back. Flick it back out. Another little pinch of maggots on top. Just keep on repeating that. You'll find that as you keep on introducing the bait, oh, float just popped up then, which is typically a bite, but it's the opposite to what you expect. So we're just getting towards the branches again, where I was thinking is most likely to get a ball. Oh, the float did dip then, but I think I was a bit too early. Sometimes you get a bit trigger happy with these things. So let's try again. We're now on to the third cast. I didn't say you'd catch on your first cast, but let's see if we can do it third time lucky. So that float's just settling. Again, pinch of maggots on top. Drifting through. Just about to go under these branches. But the depth is set perfect because that float is drifting through nicely. It's not getting caught on anything, which suggests that it is the right depth. If I was over, that was a bite. We got something. Okay, definitely not going to need the net for this one. But we have caught a fish, and this is a tiny little, I don't know, a minnow. Don't think it's a gudgeon. But I think we're going to get a lot of these. This is the sort of venue where these could be quite prevalent. Tiny little fish. It will leave if it will focus. But very, very welcome. Pop it back, see if we can get something a bit bigger. Hello. Just a couple tiny little gudgeon.
Wait, are we going to be on YouTube?
If you want to be.
Oh, yeah.
Say hello.
Hello. Hello.
So have you guys caught much today? Lots of handshakes. I'm going to lose it once. I heard some cheering earlier. Was that you catch something then, or?
We got so excited because like we haven't caught anything in ages.
Yeah, blanking.
Nice one. Well, it's great to see you guys fishing at a young age because that's what this video is all for. So enjoy yourselves. Have a good one. Float back out. Maggots on top. I'm finding I'm getting into a bit of a rhythm now, and I'm also noting a bit of a pattern as to when I'm getting the bites. Nothing as the float just through the open part of the swim, but as soon as I reach those branches, I've been getting the bites. And that's probably because there's a lot of bird life here, and these fish feel safer there, because if they were exposed, they'd be more likely to be eaten by the seagulls that are above, or the cormorants, the kingfishers. So once I get to these branches where they think it's safer, that tends to be where I'm getting the bites. So I'm just reaching that point now, so hopefully they prove me right. And you'll find that's the case in a lot of swims, not just here or rivers. You can find lakes and things, places which are a bit more structure, where they can feel safer. They can often be where the fish are wanting to hold out because they feel safer and more comfortable. Having said all that, the swim has dried up a little bit. I haven't had any bites for the last few minutes, so they're proving me wrong. And that may be a case of I disturbed the swim too much myself. They realise that I'm here and I need to move on myself. So we'll just do a couple more run throughs, see if we can pick anything else up, and if not, we'll move on and try somewhere else. Yeah. Oh. It is fun catching, but I would like something a little bit bigger today to see what this rod is up to. So I think this swim is just full of these little minnows. And as fun as it is, I think it's time to move on because I'm getting plagued by them, and it'd be nice to catch something a little bigger. So, put the hook onto the first eye, tighten the line, and we're ready to move on. But before we move on, there was one really important thing that I forgot to mention that I got from the tackle shop. Mars bar. You know, it's been there a while. There's a bite. Oh, there's a snag down there. Got it. Another one. You guessed it. It's a minnow. If you were catching some fish on your first session, you had no idea what it was, there are ways of identifying it, one of which is with an app called Go Catch Fish. If you find it on the App Store, you can take a picture of the fish and log it into a catch reports, and it uses AI to pick up what the fish are, and it will tell you exactly what it is. You input the weights and things like that, but if you really didn't know what it was, it will find out what it is for you, and then you're there. There you go. You've learned what the fish was. Well, as is always the case with me, I fished a little bit longer than I should have done. I should have been gone about an hour ago, but this is always what happens. I want to get that extra fish, something a little bit bigger, just push it, the next spot. And that's hopefully what will happen to you guys that are going to try fishing from watching this video. Maybe it's yourself getting into fishing or taking your kid fishing, whatever. I hope it inspires you to go grab some kit and get fishing, because the initial setup cost today of everything to get me fishing today, including the bait, was 70 quid. Rod license for the day would have been £7.50. The stretch was free, but that's initial setup cost. If you go after that, you don't have to buy the rods and reels again. You've got it all. You just have to pay for your day ticket, your bait and things like that. And who knows, maybe next time you catch something slightly bigger, then bigger than that. I implore you to start fishing in the way that I've done today. Start with the basics, catch fish no bigger than your pinky, you'll enjoy it, and then maybe work your way up to different species. Before you know it, you could be in my shoes, doing it for a living, catching fish all over the country, all over the world, of all different sizes, and enjoying whatever the species and whatever the size comes my way. So please subscribe to me if you haven't done so already, like the video if you did, and maybe share it to someone that's looking to get into fishing, or someone that you think needs a bit of extra advice on starting back with the basics. I've enjoyed myself, I hope you have as well, and I'll see you in the next one. As I said at the beginning, all of the kit in this video will be going to one of you lot. To enter, make sure you're subscribed, you like the video, and leave a comment below describing your first ever fishing memory, or how this kit would help you or someone you know get into fishing. And good luck.